What is up, everybody? I am Tanner, coming from you from the All You Can Hear network. And today we have a little something special, a little out of our norm, our wheelhouse, something that has been attempted multiple times in like the last 6 months. I'm sitting today one-on-one with a professional wrestler, one half of Violence is Forever, Dominic Garrini. Dom, how you doing?
Doing good, Tanner. Yourself? Yeah, like you said, I think we've been trying to do this since like April, legitimately. It was like I think you hit me up like a couple weeks before Japan, and you're like, "Hey, go to Japan and come back, and we'll talk about Japan." And then I just think like I went dark, and then a couple weeks ago, you're like, "Hey, do you still want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to." So
Yeah, like so much happened. Like I hit you up. I think it was like the day before you were leaving for Japan, and I was like, oh, I didn't even think of the logistics of you going to Japan. And then like you've been super busy, and I've been super busy. You know, got a new shoot job, whatever. But now we're here, finally talking some professional wrestling, and I'm super excited because I'm trying to think of the last time we physically saw each other, and it was probably 2019.
I'd say probably pre-pandemic, really. Probably
It's definitely pre-COVID
or something like that.
Yeah, definitely pre-COVID. So it's been a hot minute. So I just wanted to sit down today and kind of catch up, because on one of our first episodes ever, episode 15, when we did like the SEI stuff, you were on that show all the way back in 2017. And that was like the first time I met you. And that was like our first show that really kind of blew up in other circles besides like our personal circles.
Yeah,
so I kind of wanted
2017 is like a lifetime ago at this point.
It really is. Like, you were, God, I mean, so much has happened just like personally and just everywhere in the last 6 years.
2017.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to start this I don't know what you want to call it, an interview, a show, who knows. I kind of wanted to start this out because you were primarily a singles wrestler in 2017, and in 2019 you and Kevin Koo, Violence is Forever, started teaming, and now that's like the primary gig. And I wanted to kind of like get your thought process of what it was like going from a primary singles guy to now. I mean, just in the last year, you've been to Germany, you've been to Japan, you've been all over the US as this tag guy. Like, how is that? Is that how you expected your quote unquote career to look like 6 years ago when we first sat down?
No, absolutely not. No, if somebody tells you that they're becoming a professional wrestler to be in a tag team, they're a liar to you. No one imagines that a tag team match is going to main event WrestleMania. It did this year. Awesome. Also happened to be one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, so maybe that stigma is gone. But when you go in this, and I've had this talks with my students and just people in general, when you get into professional wrestling, you want to go and you want to be the WrestleMania main eventer, but at some point you got to figure out what's going to be best for you. So last time we talked would have probably been pre even my Evolve run. So I go through my Evolve run. It ends somewhat unceremoniously, and kind of like looking for answers and like looking at the question. And I remember talking to Ethan Page, of all people, and I had talked with him about his time with Josh Alexander when they were a tag team. Probably this is before they reformed Monster Mafia, but when Ethan and Josh were first starting to kind of get their exposure on the indies, they made the decision to be a tag team because they felt they could get further together than separate. And it was kind of something similar with Kevin and I. At the time, both of us were going through like real life stuff, and we ended up becoming best friends out of it. And we kind of just said, what if we become a tag team? We have very similar wrestling minds, and there's really not a lot of independent wrestling tag teams. And this is like late 2018, late-ish 2018, and it was just like, okay, let's do it. And it presents itself with a lot of logistical problems, but no, I really did not see myself being, widely known as one of the best tag team wrestlers in the world.
Yeah, I told you before we started this, I was like, hey, like, if you don't have anything to bring to the table, I'm probably going to spend the whole half hour like gassing you up. But legitimately, so it's been so cool, just like from a personal level, like getting to know you, like obviously sitting down with you 6.5 years ago at this point, which again, like you said, was a lifetime ago. Like, holy shit. But two, like you said it yourself, you are one half of the premier tag teams. I mean, definitely in the US, but like worldwide. Like, I mean, I know people from other countries that like hold you and Kevin in very high regard, constantly have been in like tag team of the year discussion. And especially with like tag team wrestling, especially like during, I would say the first like 2020, the first like actual year of like no crowds, clap crowds, whatever, in a lot of the world. Tag team wrestling kind of seemed like it was on like a downward slope, but I really think, y'all are a not small part of the fact that tag team wrestling has not taken a back seat and is like one of like, I go seek out tag team wrestling now because like I feel like there's been sort of like this revitalized effort, especially in America, where it seems like tag teams are becoming a bigger focus again. And I have to say, like, you and Kevin, in my eyes, I mean, maybe you'll see it different, are kind of like the leaders of that charge.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, when they went and did the first Tag Team of the Year award back in 2019 for IWTV, I mean, at that time, like, Kevin and I were, like, somewhat surprised to win it. Fast forward, it's 2022, we win it for the 4th year in a row. I think this year will be the first year we don't win the IWTV Tag Team of the Year, just because our exposure on the IWTV app, or IWTV network, has been a lot less this year for many different reasons, whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff goes into kind of the revitalization, the renaissance of tag team wrestling. I mean, I think that having two pretty successful singles guys set aside their singles careers, except for a couple places, and say, hey, we can be one of the best tag teams in the world if we combine, has helped out and has made other people think like, hey, if these guys are willing to give up their singles, maybe we could be a tag team. And I think that says something. I think the push of tag team wrestling on television has been big, a lot in AEW. Clearly, FTR has been, programmed as one of the kind of top tag teams, anywhere and everywhere they go. Emergence of, international tag teams like Aussie Open coming on as strong as they have has been big, prior to, Jay Briscoe's death. The Briscoe brothers resurgence was huge. The Machine Guns are back. So it's like kind of like tag team wrestling is kind of in like a new golden era. Obviously, like I had stated earlier, tag team wrestling main event at night 1 of WrestleMania this year, which is something that I think a lot of people never thought would happen. So it's really cool. And, it's cool that some people think that Kevin and I are somewhat responsible for that. Like I said, I remember a lot of people pulling me aside in 2018 and saying, what are you doing? Why are you going to be a tag team wrestler? It was more of just the idea of, like I said, I've done a lot as a singles guy. I think I can do more as a tag team wrestler, at least at the current moment. And, if for whatever reason that, that tag team stuff fades out, we did it, we tried it. And sad, and, to the contrary belief of everybody, 5 years later, we're still rocking as strong as ever, Kevin and I, so.
Yeah, I think, like, I remember when you and Kevin, like, started teaming together, I'm like, oh, that seems like, I just never would have put, like, you two specifically together, solely because I feel like y'all worked different styles. Like, I remember when we first talked in 2017, you talked about, like, some of your biggest influences, like, and how people were sending you, like, tapes, specifically of, like, Yoshiaka Fujiwara, who I don't feel, is not a tag guy. So when you started teaming with somebody like Kevin Koo, who, again, I see as sort of like the antithesis to Fujiwara's style. Again, this is my 2018, 2019 brain thinking. I was like, well, that's weird, but oddly it may work. And then here y'all, I mean, again, I'm sure, like, even y'all a few years ago didn't expect it, again, to lead to y'all going into Japan,
probably not.
Germany, all over the US.
Probably not.
So.
I think Kevin and I were confident ourselves that we could be that good. But,
yeah.
It's a lot about like that really weird Fort Minor song. I don't know how you get to the name of the game part of it. But it's all about just the hard work, the grind. And that's Kevin and I will tell anybody that. And we get a lot of questions. People ask us stuff, and it's just like we ate a lot of shit sandwiches to get where we were. A lot of 8 to 12-hour drives for very little money. A lot of stuff like that. And when we first teamed, yeah, of course, you had me, who was primarily with the grappling style, and Kevin was just kind of more of a total hybrid style. So realistically, to me, when we started teaming, and part of like our big brain set of what we were Tim and Walter. We were going to be an American version of that, just guys that aren't as big as those guys, but I could grapple them, Kevin could smash them, and that'd be the idea. And my style has grown immensely since then, to the point where I had fans that told me that they did not like 2016 through 2018 Dom, but then they saw me wrestle in 2019 and beyond, and were like, oh my God, you're so much different, and I enjoy your style so much more now. So it's always a different strokes for different folks kind of thing. So that's worked out well. And yeah, I don't think Kevin and I ever thought we would be as far as we are. One of the things Kevin and I used to watch all the time when we were hanging out, when we were starting the tag team, was we watched Progress all the time. And last year around this time, we were able to go over and wrestle for Progress, and wrestle Aussie Open for Progress, and get Please Come Back chance. So it's just like, it's such a full circle thing for him and I, to put everything together. And him and I, right after we got back from Japan, or right as we were going to Japan, we had like this moment where it was like, it's so cool to do this, but it's even cooler to do this with your best friend. And that's one of the really, really cool things about tag team wrestling, is you get to have those moments with your best friend.
Yeah, no, that comes across, like, how y'all perform in the ring. I mean, it's especially, now after y'all have been teaming for so long, but y'all are so in sync. And I feel like y'all wouldn't be that in sync if y'all legitimately didn't like each other or something. Like, sometimes you can tell. But y'all are just like, I mean, it reminds me a lot of like the fluidness of like a Motor City Machine Guns, who y'all actually had the opportunity to go up against recently, which I'm sure was super cool for y'all. I would love to hear about that. But it is nice for, like, from the fan perspective, to see it as like, wrestling is a fairly cynical business, but like two people that are, A, like you said, best friends with each other, B, just like legitimately good people, too, like having this success, like it's super nice and rewarding. And I I feel like right now, like, especially y'all's run in like Deadlock, for instance, is just like super cool, because y'all are doing just, I mean, not like stuff that wouldn't even have happened on the indies pre-pandemic, like for there to like a main event feud to be, kind of centered around tag team wrestling, and like have this old school build up around it. Like, I mean, it's just really cool to see. So I really think like y'all and, like Workhorsemen, like on the independent scene, and like you said, Motor City Machine Guns and all of them, like really just have bought back a style of wrestling that works in so many different ways, and is just so versatile.
And a lot of that credit, though, too, that goes to, Johnny, Tony, and James at Deadlock for, taking the chance, of putting us as the main event level feud in their company. They didn't have to do that, especially because, leading into a lot of the stuff, there were a lot of scheduling issues with Workhorsemen, getting pulled for AEW ROH dates. And, they had enough faith in not only them, but us. And they let us, carry the ball for them. And it's led to, us and those guys becoming like really just good friends, outside of wrestling too. But yeah, I mean, just like the renaissance, like I said, tag team wrestling, back in 2021, like late 2020, early 2021, everybody had always just said, oh, well, Avance Forever and FTR, like, that's the match. Like, that's the only match. Once that happens, it's dead and gone. And I think that, over the time of the last few years, more teams have been built up. Other teams came back, like, if you would have told me in 2020, while the pandemic was going on, hey, the Motor City Machine Guns are going to come back and be just as good as ever, I would have told you were a psychopath, So it's just like everything's kind of opened back back up, and that's been so cool, and just such a great opportunity for sure.
No, like absolutely. Like I couldn't imagine like how rewarding it feels. Like you said, y'all both ate a ton of shit sandwiches, and like how rewarding it is now. How y'all as a tag team are, in my eyes and a lot of people's eyes, like one of the top acts on the American independent scene, just like throughout the whole country, not even a particular region. And I really want to talk for just a second about going to Japan, because obviously like was kind of like the whole reason we even like wanted to do this. And I know y'all went to Japan 6 months ago at this point or whatever, but I wanted to know like how that felt, like from being told like I don't know if I would like hitch my wagon to like this whole tag team thing, because like the American Indies don't really have a place for like top build tag teams right now. And then here y'all are 2023, y'all are flying out to Japan as, in my eyes, one of the premier independent promotions in America's tag champs, and y'all wrestling, like Takanashi and Chris Brooks, for, like in Japan. Like, I just want to know like how, not necessarily how that came together, but like what did that do for yours? And I don't know if you want to speak for Kevin, but like where did that move y'all's goalposts to, per se, like for the rest of this year into 2024?
How did I feel? I mean, I remember there were rumbles, like we had heard that DPW was going to go do Japan. They were going to do some co-pros with Gato Move. And we had known that it was probably going to be either us or the Workhorsemen going. I think it was June. Yeah, it was around January. I think we had it was beginning of February. We had kind of figured it out. I had gotten a message from Johnny from Deadlock, and he said, "Hey, what's your phone number?" I was like, "That's weird." So I called, he asked for my phone number, and Koo was like, "Hey, Johnny's gonna call you." He goes, "They're taking us to Japan." I was like, "Oh, this is really, really fucking sick." And then I talked with Johnny a little bit. I talked with Kev, and then that was actually coincidentally the weekend we lost the IWTV tag titles. Funny enough, so I didn't cry too many tears over losing those. But it was just they made the decision. We were the only foreigners to go, and we got lucky because the game plan was to get us visas, but it all came along too quickly. So it was kind of like, hey, you're gonna come here as travelers, and hopefully they don't kick you out. Because they wanted to take Andrew Everett, but Andrew had just been to Japan recently for DDT, so they felt like him coming back in so recently he might get flagged, and they didn't want to do that to him. So we were the only Americans that went. And the travel to go to Japan was even crazier when you really put it into perspective, because in hindsight, I would have canceled every booking I had going, or the bookings I had going that weekend, and I would have had them fly me out on Thursday. But Kevin and I had already taken a date in California on the Friday before we left. We both left on Sunday. So we had dates in California, and then I had to come back, and I had AIW in Akron, which is 20 minutes from my house, so I don't try to not miss those ones. So that travel day was like Friday. I was supposed to leave in the morning. I got a text alert on Thursday night before my Friday flight that my flight was canceled, just wholehearted canceled. I spent 2 hours on the phone trying to get my flight rebooked, because this is for a newer company in California, and they had booked a match that had not happened to us versus the West Coast Wrecking Crew, which was like a big match for both of us because like we'd all wanted that match. So now I'm on the phone to the promoter being like, hey, they've completely canceled my flight, man. So to their credit, they bought me a very, very expensive flight to get me there, but I wasn't able to leave Cleveland until like 4 o'clock on Friday. So I landed in California at 9 p.m. California time, drove right to the venue. Match is called. I have to change my gear. We go out and wrestle, come back. I have a 6 a.m. flight the next morning. Fly LA to Denver, Denver to Cleveland, Cleveland drive to Akron, which is an hour. I wrestle Fred Rosser, and then my flight the next morning is at 9 a.m. And then flight to Japan is 14 hours, so I do that. So just even all that, and I wish I wouldn't have had the other bookings. I would have left Thursday. I would have gotten to spend more time in Japan. But man, just the week we got to spend in Japan was like my favorite time I've had in forever. because it was so well balanced. Kevin and I balanced the trip so well. It was like land, have like a night to walk Tokyo a little bit, and like go to sleep. Wednesday we wrestled. We wrestled that first match against CDK. We had a chance to really explore, Japan again on that day before the match. Thursday we went to Tokyo Disney. Friday we wrestled, Thursday we wrestled the second match. Friday we went to Disney Sea. And Saturday I had to go home. Kevin and the Deadlock guy stayed longer, but it was awesome. And like you said, so where do our goalposts go after that? And realistically, I think Kevin and I had always been like, well, we're just happy being the guys. We're just happy being guys. I think after Japan, the goalpost moved to we either wanted to get signed to a TV-based company, likely, and I've said this before, we are likely a better fit for the Ring of Honor tag division than we would be for like the AEW tag division. I don't know if what we do works every week on TV. And if we're not there, we want to be regular Japan tour guys, whether it be with Noah, New Japan, Big Japan, something like that. That's kind of our game plan, what we want. So that's where our goalpost moved, is to try to, spend more time in Japan or, finally kind of finalize a contract somewhere and get on TV, because just kind of like, not trying to be like cocky or arrogant, but we have kind of done everything that we can do on the American Indies as a tag team besides just be the best guys out there. I remember sitting in a hotel room probably 5 months ago with Kev, and I just said, you think this is how Nigel and Danielson felt in like 2007 when they were like clear-cut best in the world at something and they just were like waiting for the call? And I've always just thought that now, so.
I mean, yeah, I mean that I can definitely see that. That is like it feels like for probably probably like during pandemic, like just when hardly anybody was running, it really felt like the indies were quote unquote drying up. But I guess with just more promotions running, like you've actually seen this, like, oh no, there's been like this revitalized effort in the indies in general. And it does feel like it's reaching that boiling point now where, I mean, like you said, like how Nigel and Brian must have felt in 07, it definitely feels like y'all definitely fit the criteria of just like, y'all are like, I don't want to say indie vets because y'all haven't like time wise, but also like the last 3 years have been fucked anyways. So like the last 3 years have been like 15 years. So it just feels like y'all are just like, I don't want to say cut above. I really don't want to gas you up that much, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like it feels like y'all have like done your lap.
Like the last real thing we had to do on the indies was kind of like win the IWTV tag titles, because it was something we had told Jerry for 3 years to do. We did that at the end of the year, and now it's just kind of like, oh, we're here. We're gonna have the best match out every time. We're going to, represent Deadlock as a tag team at all times, because it's kind of like they put their faith in us. So that's like our main tag team focus, but the game plan is, as always, I always tell everybody this. I started wrestling in 2016, 2015 is when I started training. I never really had any illusions of grandeur that I was going to be signed to a TV product. Obviously, 2015, the landscape was changing a little bit. The WWE was signing more indie guys, but I never thought myself as somebody that like the WWE would sign. I was like, never going to be super jacked, super shredded. Like, I'll look like I could kick your ass. But so I never really thought the WWE was necessarily going to be like a thing. And at that time, I'd said to myself, Gabe books evolve, and I love 2002 through 2009 ROH that he booked. So if I could just get to where Gabe books and I could be part of that, I think of that as a win. And I did that really early on. So as you talk about moving goalposts, so the goalposts moved, and realistically when we started the tag team, I don't know where the goalposts really even were. It was just like, man, we just want to be one of the best in the world at what we do. And I think we've, kind of gotten to that point now. So like I said, the goalposts are at a point of like, man, we really just want to, really showcase what we have on a bigger level.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I just you talking about like the ROH TV product, I totally agree. I feel like y'all would fit in, like y'all are tailor made for, or it is tailor made for you. But also, like, I can't help but like the fan in me being like, man, they would really have like a
I
fucking
feel like
kick
All
ass run and
Japan,
like
they
Noah
have a
or All
certain
Japan.
archetype and body type that they like. So I don't know if we do that, but I think like we would have a sick junior tag run on either Noah or New Japan. Like, it was funny when we first got the Deadlock gear made, or when Kevin first made our Deadlock gear, that orange and black gear we wore for the Deadlock tag tournament. I looked at him, I said, you should probably send a picture of this to like Zach or Robbie Eagles and be like, hey, you guys need a junior tag? It was like, they're like the only faction in New Japan that doesn't have a junior tag. I was like, you could fit that bill nicely.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Well, Dom, before we go, I have some questions to just like one more. So I feel like, and maybe you'll feel differently. I feel like your coming out performance was WrestleMania weekend 2018, AIW. You have
Surrender.
The no rules, the no holds barred match with. Yeah, yes. I couldn't remember the exact name of it, with Joshua Bishop. And that's really the first time we get this glimpse of what has been colloquially referred to as deathmatch Dom, which I can't help but love. Like, anytime, you're in the camo shorts, I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, we're getting a banger. And I recently watched the Bill Alfonso second annual hardcore tournament, where you wrestled Ziggy Haim, who I've never seen before. But I feel like you kind of, had that deathmatch Dom, I guess, style going into that match. And we've seen it a few times, and we've even seen it a few times in tag stuff. So I wanted to ask, what, as somebody that is like at the top of their game as a tag wrestler, what is it for you as a wrestler where sometimes you're just like, I just want to
that's a great question.
Fucking bleed.
It's
like
funny.
What is that thought process for you?
Sometimes those performances, especially like the Bishop match, that WrestleMania weekend, like, it's a well-known story, and Thorne tells us on the AW podcast, like, we were almost left off of that show, which, to him and I, me being at the position I was at the time, and Josh being kind of like the hottest prospect we had at the time, us almost getting left off that show, we, not saying we felt disrespected, but we felt like we had something to prove going in there. And for those of you people who don't know, Josh and I grew, like, Josh is like a younger kid from my hometown, like, we like live like literally 10 minutes from each other. And for the longest time when he was training, him and I would carpool to train together. We would watch DVDs, and because he had like this weird hijacked like stereo system that you could watch like a DVD on the stereo system while you were driving. So like we do that. So like we were like ready to go. And a lot of people don't know this, like one of Josh Bishop's like favorite wrestlers is Homicide. So we had like all these ideas, and like I'm like a big deathmatch head. Like I loved watching deathmatch wrestling and hardcore wrestling when I was younger. I think I told Robles and Burns this from Smart Mark. Think like if you like, they can go back and look at my purchase history. The first VHS I purchased was Cage Death 6, and the first DVD I purchased was Tournament Death 4. So it's like I used to buy and watch deathmatch stuff all the time. And like I have my limits when it comes to deathmatch stuff, like which the stuff I'm willing to do is a lot more than like, let's say if Kevin and I were to have a tag team hardcore match, the stuff I'm willing to do is a little more than Kevin for whatever reason. Maybe I don't like myself as much, but I like hardcore wrestling, and I like the challenge of it. It's like a different canvas. Like I've got 15 more paint palettes to paint with in a deathmatch or a hardcore match. Like, okay, how can I use this door? How can I use this weapon? Oh, hey, Chris Brooks uses those plastic bins in DDT. Let's use that in America because no one's seen that, and it doesn't really hurt as much as you think it does, and it makes a lot of noise, and it looks cool as shit. So, like, I look at little stuff like that. Just, like, a lot of stuff like that. So for me, like I said, I just like to be an artist of, like, a different kind of shade, a different kind of, like, style, when I can. Obviously, when my life is all in order and I'm not feeling like I want to die all the time, I don't want to do nearly as many hardcore matches, but I also know that and Kevin knows this too, and we know this as a tag team, we have one in the chamber that we can go out and give you this crazy blood or this crazy blood hardcore match that's going to like live up to like what an 80s style territory feud blow-off would be, which like if you watch the cage match between us and the Workhorsemen, we were both ready to bleed on that. And I remember Harry Aaron, you know, he saw me up in the up in the locker room, and he says, well, how do you feel today? I said, I'll let you after the match. I said, but if I'm not Jay Briscoe, Samoa Joe, steel cage match levels of bloody, I'm gonna be upset at myself. I look at stuff like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that cage, like, yeah, I feel like that cage match does really harken back to like the 80s, like territory style blow off, like blood match. And I guess that's one thing I like.
Yes.
Again, obviously, like I think you're a fantastic wrestler, anyways, obviously, but I do like how you can like make the distinction because like with the Bishop match, like I remember, I'm pretty sure I messaged you immediately after that match. I was like, what the fuck? Why are there skewers in your ear? Like, that just seems like such like.
I have some bugaboos. Like
you talk about, like, I don't do the gross stuff. That to me,
any hardcore guy that does them this is gusset plates, because like to me, that's made to hold together a barn or a house, not my body. And then also, I've talked enough with like Nick Gage. Nick Gage is like the most adamant. I hate gusset plates guy because they hurt. He goes, they hurt like a motherfucker, and they get no pop because it makes no noise. So people don't like it. But no, that skewers in the ear spot. I told this recently on a Fightful podcast. That spot was like, I've had that spot in the back pocket forever. Like literally, that spot was going to. I wanted BJ Whitmer, even though he's now canceled. I wanted BJ to do that spot to me back in 2018. You know, when we had our Submitter Surrender match, and he just refused to do it. He's like, I will not do that. And Josh is a psychopath, so he's more than willing to do it. You know, when you look at like Josh Bishop's 2019, what a year that guy had, because he had that match with me, and then he has the scalpel or the balcony spot with Justice. Like that kid had some screws loose in 2019. From
I feel like that's like the year, like 2019 is the year where Bishop really, really came onto a lot of radars.
Like, I know some people are like,
but yeah, it's just funny how you're like, I'm not into the gross stuff, and like that to me is still like,
especially like in a hardcore match, because that means I don't have to gig, because it's gonna cut me open the exact way I want to be cut open. So like, all in. I get the idea of like, oh, you know, there's lots of things going wrong, but if you hit me over the head with it, or if it's like right across the shoulder blades, I feel pretty comfortable with getting hit with light tubes. No big deal. Yeah, no, keep that one. You got to keep that one.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll put that in my notes. I don't know what I'll do with it. But
people love when they see camo shorts on me. Like they get a preconceived notion. Well, Dom, I think like even like some of the IW fans that day were like, oh, he's gonna do something super crazy. And like I did enough that day. Like my goal in that Ziggy match was to make Ziggy look as good as possible, because I know she doesn't get to have nearly as many singles matches as she would like. So to me, it was, how can I make this 100-pound girl look conceivable, like she's going to beat, as Worldwide once put it, a human tank like myself. And I thought we did a great job in telling that story.
Yeah, no, absolutely 100% agree. Like, it definitely reminded me of like, I guess just because it's really the only comparison I can make is like Candice LeRae,
that's fitting, considering
performance in the Guerrilla Warfare against the Bucks, where it's like yeah, so it's just like the uphill battle, but like it looks believable. It doesn't look
put together goofy. Matches like that the wrong way is that they don't look for that believability in it, or like the, hey, she's 100 pounds, you're 225 pounds, she has to hit you with 5 shots to every 1 shot you get.
Yeah, like, yeah, sometimes you're just like, you know, logistics. Well, Dom, I think that's about everything I wanted to touch on. Do you have anything coming up, end
Yeah,
of
I would
September,
assume this is
October,
probably gonna come
rest
out
of the
after
year,
the
you
JT
want to
Lightning
plug or
Invitational
just
Tournament.
plug your
'Cause that's
socials? Like, go
next
for it.
weekend. Okay, well, I'll have wrestled Chavo Guerrero of all people at that point, because that's my first round matchup. So it's a weird
Yes.
match that's gonna be through the end of the month. I'd have to look at my schedule, but I know we have Black Label Pro near the end of the month. Then I have beginning of October. I know I have AIW on the 7th back in Akron. A lot of stuff like that. Socials at DGreeny that is on my Twitter and my Instagram. So those are going to be the ones that you're going to want to follow. BIFmerch.com is where you can get all the Violence Forever merchandise. We became real professionals, and I bought a domain for us that I pay for every month. That is integrated with Big Cartel, so you're able to get all active sizes, things like that. Older shirts that we have, those are going to be direct to garment, but anything that's like fresh, like if you guys have seen it, we have this design that I had JCP Designs do, which is the Zombies album cover, but it's Kevin and I with some skeletons on it. That shirt will be active on there. I put the order in last week for what we had pre-ordered, plus a bunch of extras, so check that out, VIFmerch.com. If you want to check out Dominic Garrini merch, that's dgarrini.bigcartel.com. I am too cheap to pay for 2 domains every month. That's just me. Otherwise, that's it, man. It's been a real pleasure talking with you tonight.
Yeah, hell yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening again. Go follow Dom everywhere. Go buy the merch. Keep up with Violence Forever. Keep up with Dom Greeny. And thanks for coming on, Dom. All right. We'll catch y'all later.